The key takeaway is to audit your conversion journey for AI agent. Can an AI agent complete your conversion journey as easily as a human user can? I'm Ben Howe, and this is SEO in 2026.
And what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
My number one tip is to guide your C-suite into the great agentic unknown, because if you don't, then nobody else is going to.
So I guess to begin with, the appropriate question is, what is the great agentic unknown?
So when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the nature of AI agent using websites in the same way that human customers would conventionally. So that's researching a topic on behalf of a user based on a prompt, but it can go all the way through from research into getting things like quotes on behalf of users, even adding things to a shopping cart on behalf of users. So it, in some ways, feels like a bit of a stretch for some SEO practitioners, probably taking some SEO practitioners beyond their comfort zone. But the point I would like to make is that there's nobody else in a business that better placed to guide leadership into optimizing for this opportunity than an SEO.
And one of the mistakes that an SEO typically makes when conducting a training session is by being too technical. So obviously this is mired in a similar potential challenge, and it's important to focus on what is the win for the business, what is the challenge for the business, as opposed to technically how do AI agents work. So how does an SEO go about explaining this articulately and relevantly to stakeholders without sharing too much technical information?
Sure. So I think a simple approach at the moment, because it's an emerging technology, is to treat it as a hygiene factor, as it's an opportunity to do more business. It's not relevant to position it as kind of hype. It's not relevant to position it as a scam story. I've seen some LinkedIn chats that will say that this is going to replace organic search. Agentic AI is going to replace organic search. There are going to be more agents shopping online than human users. I'm sure that will be the case eventually. It's nowhere near the case now. It wouldn't make sense to position a topic like this, position it as a kind of horror story like this. Rather, it makes more sense to position it as a hygiene factor. This is a way in which people can theoretically do business with you, so you should enable it.
And what are the key ways that need to be amended, changed on a website in order to enable this?
Well, I would look at it in two sets of consideration. So the first is more comfortable to an SEO practitioner because it's about how an agent may go about researching a topic, how it might determine what queries are useful for a user's prompt and go and find that information. And the skills required for this have a lot in common with classic search, doing keyword research, providing good structured content to meet that search intent. And this is a lot in common with classic search. The second is the area that's perhaps a bit new for some people. And it's the notion of testing your actual conversion funnel as an agent. So ways in which this can be done. You can prompt something emerging like ChatGPT's agent mode to try and convert through your funnel. But you can prompt it in such a way that may carry out some common mistakes. And you can audit your site against those sorts of common mistakes. I can give some technical examples if that would be useful.
Yes, please, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So some technical examples. I've seen ChatGPT's agent mode, for example, struggle with layout shift in content. So, for example, I've seen ChatGPT's agent mode struggle when trying to add an item to cart, but a dynamic message pops up where add to cart button used to be. And I've seen it sort of struggle on to conduct the next relevant step. So that would be one example. I've seen other examples where agent mode, for example, may struggle to see the relationship between two subdomains from one company, and therefore may not move across a customer journey quite seamlessly. So it pays as an SEO to try and prompt an agent, and ChatGPT's agent mode would be the most accessible, most obvious one, to conduct a customer journey, a transactional journey, but think of some common misprompt that a potential customer may use that may cause ChatGPT to struggle. Back to the example of the technical issues I just identified. What if someone wants to refine if they're filling in a lead form and they want to refine their form? Does the layout of that form change? That's a really proficient, competent user, customer of your business, may go through an inquiry form or something like this in one go. But a less proficient customer may take a couple of goes at refining that information. And so if an agent's replicating that behavior, can it do it in the way that a human can? So it's just trying to challenge your conversion journey through the eyes of an agent that's been badly prompted.
Now, you've also shared that Google have also announced Opal, making it easier than ever for non-technical people to create agents. So how many people are actually doing this, and what is Opal, and how significant do you think this might be?
Well, I would say Opal is a disruptor to what's become the market standard technology. So we're at the back end of 2025, and software called N8N is what has emerged as the market standard for people who want to create their own agent. Now, the most commonly used tool to create AI agents at the moment is, it's probably ChatGPT in agentic mode, and has become the market standard for creating completely customized agents. But it's not affordable to everyone. It's affordable enough to a passionate hobbyist, a professional, passionate hobbyist who's willing to invest in understanding agentic AI. But Google's Opal is a product which has many of the same features, perhaps a little more basic, but enables people to experiment with creating agents or agentic-like automations for themselves. At the time of speaking, it's fresh for within a few weeks. So this early iteration of the product, it's likely to develop, and it's likely Google are well placed to become a market leader in this. Considering the main situation in which AI agents are used at the moment, it's for going to the web, browsing the web, completing actions. And Google, they've produced Opal, they have Chrome, they have Google Search. Logically, they'd be best placed to dominate this space.
So if we might be heading to a future where there are more agents than humans conducting online searches, visiting your website, trying to convert on your website, what does this mean for analytics, for tracking that? And also, do we have to significantly review how we're actually structuring web pages now to actually optimize for agents instead of humans?
Yeah, I think so. To answer your last question first, because it is what comes after, we should consider our websites very differently. It's still such an early part of optimizing for agentic AI, and already proficient agentic AI makes all websites sort of look a bit hostile, because a publisher publishes a website based on a set of researched customer journeys and creates ways in which users can move through a few of the most common types of funnel. But agentic AI is creating every journey completely bespoke for the individual user. So even the best UX practitioners, the product of their work suddenly looks less successful compared to the product of a custom journey produced by agentic AI. So it's easy to imagine a future in which there are as many bot users of websites carrying out actions on behalf of users than human users. And as such, a website should be equally accessible for a bot as for a user. And we've spent as SEO practitioners years telling people design and produce content for humans. Google's algorithms are really smart. Don't worry about the technical SEO. Technical SEO comes into its own on enterprise level sites. My advice is to rein that in just a little bit. A website that is being prepared for agentic AI should be equally designed for bots as for users. Going back to those examples I gave a few minutes ago, some common technical challenges. I'm seeing AI agents at the moment struggling to deal with layout shift in a website. Forgetting where buttons are. I'm seeing agentic AI at the moment struggling to see the relationship between two different subdomains of a website. Things like this. These would be classic technical SEO type issues.
I remember a few years ago really enjoying using a website called usertesting.com. You used to be able to get people around the world to actually give their review on your website and have a video recording of what the user was doing. And then I had a quick look at the domain name aiagenttesting.com, and that's available if anyone wants to start that business. But is there any software that exists that perhaps can bulk do what you're suggesting, to actually test your website for AI agents visiting your website and maybe come up with many, many different potential questions and answers that users could be using within that AI search type platform and give you some type of report on precisely what you need to fix?
A really good question. So in bulk, we'll get to that in a second. Individually, something like ChatGPT's agent mode will give a sort of screen recording, slow frame rate screen recording of the actions it's trying to carry out. So oftentimes it moves quickly, but oftentimes you can see what something like this is trying to do at some kind of scale. In principle, I haven't researched this, so don't hold me to this, but in principle, there's no reason that something that's capturing a user session recording would distinguish from an agent user to a human user. In principle, a screen recording can be captured from a user agent regardless. And this takes me back to the question you asked me a few minutes ago about what does it mean for analytics. Now, it's potentially problematic. I've seen examples of agentic AI trying to complete journeys on a website, and it may run into trouble and it may ask a user to confirm whether what it's doing is correct. For example, if I'm getting a quote for insurance and I'm asked a question like, are you the person who this policy will be for? Yes, no. It will pause and it will ask me to clarify. I'll clarify, but instead of picking up the journey where it left off at the moment, a typical AI agent will restart that whole journey. So potentially, any web events you'll be tracking, you have fired an event as a quote journey was started. Your agent asked the user to clarify something, and it's restarted that journey again, potentially firing off a tag again. As we see increased use of AI agents from individuals, we will see inflated traffic, and it will become a headache that the industry will just have to settle into a sort of rubric for managing, because traffic patterns will artificially go up and certain tracked events will somewhat artificially inflate as well. Picture you as a human user trying to fetch quotes or something. You're doing you're doing research and price comparison. You might do 2 or 3 competitors manually, and it will take you half an hour. Now, if you've got an agent that can potentially do it for you, why stop at 2 or 3? Why not get 5, 6, 7, 10? And immediately it's just inflating. If you set an agent off to perform a task like this, you've immediately inflated the amount of web traffic driven by one person. You're still only going to convert once. So the value of each of those searches is lower than it would have been in a pre-agentic era, if that makes sense.
It does indeed. And it prompts me to want to ask so many other questions, but hopefully we can continue this conversation at some point in a future Majestic panel. Ben, what would you say is the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
The key takeaway is to audit your conversion journey for AI agent. Can an AI agent complete your conversion journey as easily as a human user can.
Ben Howe is Head of Digital Global Healthcare at AXA Health International. Find out more over at axaglobalhealthcare.com. Ben, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thanks.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at seoin2026.com.